Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Q&A corner here at the beautiful University of Victoria, but I guess more importantly in your digital world, and here on Twitch, or if you're catching this on YouTube, so lots of different places that we are checking this out right now. I'm so thrilled that you've decided to drop by to Q&A corner. We have got an amazing interview for you today with a really amazing person, Henry Skey, player success lead at Kano Apps, which is an amazing game company here in Victoria. So I'm gonna pull up Henry onto the stream and do a couple more intro things, but we're gonna get started in just 1 second. So there we go. We've got Henry there. I gotta unmute you, I think, because you are not able to unmute yourself. There we go. You should be able to do it now.
There we go.
Awesome. All right, I'm seeing the audio. I'm just going to double check on the stream to make sure that the audio is coming in. But how's your day going so far, Henry?
Going well. Thank you, Andrew. I was going to say you have me at a great disadvantage. I didn't know how charismatic and interesting a host you would be. Normally when I go on these things, they're moderated by somebody who perhaps works in a library or is half asleep. So I'm already intimidated, but excited.
I love it. So Henry, again, thank you so much for coming on Q&A Corner. And for those of you who are watching, an awesome thanks so much for the update Roduck, just to let us know that things are working. If this is your first time watching Q&A Corner, welcome. Q&A Corner is presented by HighTechU, an initiative based in the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Victoria. And these are interactive industry interviews. And what that means is this is a live interview series where I'm not so worried about me asking questions to Henry, but we're really interested in being able to have some conversations that you and the community are interested to know about our interviewee and their experience. So as we're going through kind of the next hour or so together, if you have questions, feel free to throw them into the chat. There's also lots of other places you can shoot an email to HighTechU. We've got lots of different channels and ways to get questions in there, but we're really excited to be able to engage with you as much as we're kind of engaging with each other. So before we kind of jump right into things, maybe Henry, you want to just kind of give a little bit of background. Obviously people can see that you're the sort of, if they saw the lead up to this interview, they know that you're the player success lead at Kano, but maybe you want to just give a little bit more of your background so people can sort of start to formulate some of those questions they might want to ask.
Certainly. I've had a bit of a seesaw life in terms of which end of Canada I live in. So I was born in Halifax, but we moved out here when I was 5. So I just say I'm from here because it's easier. And then I went to school out in New Brunswick, a very small university called Mount Alison, which I had a great time there, but way out in the Maritimes also, right on the border of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. And for those of you that think they like snow, you don't. So don't go out there for snow, but you do want to go out there for a lot of other great things. Had a wonderful time there. Got a double major in commerce and psychology. I could have graduated in 4 years, but I just wasn't ready. So that double major was a very good excuse to delay getting going. But I had a wonderful time, and then I've been back here ever since. I've been in the technology sector in Victoria basically my whole working career, starting in 2007. So I've been in the online marketing space for about 9 years or so, and I've been at Kano now for just about 3.5 years. Other background you need to know about me: I love theater. I've been doing amateur theater for a very long time. Done dozens of plays. I love it. My parents are involved too. My mom's directed me a few times, so that those roles were easy to get. I just had to be nice to my mom. I don't know if I should be promoting nepotism. That's how theater works, I guess. I also like to read, and obviously video games are a huge part of what I like to do. And then when the weather's nicer, go for bike rides and hikes to work off all the beer.
I love it. So 3.5 years at one tech company, that's like a lifetime in the tech world. Like there's pretty high turnover in there. So why so long at sort of one company?
Well, actually, I was at Neverblue, which is now global wide, for just about 6 years, and there's a few people there that have been there about double that now. There's not many of them, but there is quite a few. And then I was lucky enough to be at Ring Partner for about just over 3 years there. Kano has been my favorite job so far. I love it. It's really cool to finally work in the video game industry. It has some similarities to online marketing, but it's a totally different kettle of fish. And I knew I'd made the right choice on about day 3. I was lucky enough to get a couple of offers right after, sort of the summer vacation where I didn't, wasn't working. And it wasn't an easy choice. I had a lot of really cool offers from other tech companies, but Kano was the right one. I have seen it grow so much. I can't believe it's already been 3 years. It also seems like forever, but it also seems like blink of an eye that it's taken that long. But yeah, I see no reason to leave. I mean, obviously there's always opportunities out there, but no, I love working here.
Awesome. So what I love, and thanks so much for giving a bit of your background. It's been so cool to do the interviews that we've done. So we've had a lot of people in sort of the first year that we were doing these Q&A corners. We had a lot of people that were coming on that were like, they wanted to be engineers and work in the tech sector from like day one. And it's funny, this year, we've just seen the connections that we're making with folks that are in the industry are ones that have kind of not necessarily fallen into tech, but have gone in through maybe a non-traditional pathway into those roles. So I'm curious, actually, like, was this a place that you really wanted to end up? Like, was working in the gaming industry, or like when you were in high school, you were like, I want to be, I mean, everybody thought they wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher, right? So like, where did this fit along your career journey?
It didn't. In high school, I went to a private school. I went to Glenlyon, Norfolk for 12 years.
Oh, shout out to GNS.
That's right. Yeah. So that's university prep school. And so I knew I was going to go to university, and then I went to university and I loved it. I had a great time there too. But then I didn't really have these sort of grand ambitions aside from being a famous actor. And sad to say, I'm not that good. And I'm not tall, and there's not a ton of leading roles for gingers either, unfortunately, but we're working on that. So no, beyond that, I didn't really know, what I wanted to do, to be honest. When I got back from graduating, like you said, I kind of fell into tech. Everybody was hiring a lot of people. I was lucky to jump on at a really good time, a really early time in that company's career. And that's where my professional journey kind of began. It's not necessarily what I thought I was going to do, but what I did want to do was be successful and meet a lot of people and be in a really cool industry. And tech, I've always been interested in tech. I'm not a coder myself, but that also doesn't necessarily matter. And I admire people that know and have a passion for and a knowledge of exactly what they want to do. But there's a lot of us that don't. And what tech offers is a broad stroke of different career paths and opportunities. And so I think that's what appealed to me as well. I had a little bit of background in marketing. My degrees, like I said, were commerce and psychology. So there's a lot of different angles you can approach businesses with that degree. I love to write. Obviously, I like performing a little bit. So there's a lot of opportunity there for forums, live streams, and videos and things like that. So the answer is I didn't know specifically what I wanted to do, but I kind of knew what job I wanted. And like I said, I'm a ginger, so that basically forbids any outdoor work without shade. So a lot of outdoor jobs were completely off the table.
See, and just so you know, I'm with you. I have just a hint of ginger.
I saw it,
and I haven't sort of. I can still go outside. I have a short window during the day that's around like when the sun's coming up and the sun's going down, where I'm fine and no sunburns. But I'm with you 100%.
I would love for some famous ginger celebrity to bring parasols back, as like a fashion statement, which would be really cool because then I could carry around an umbrella without people thinking I was a little bit off. But one day we'll get there. Hats and sunglasses we'll have to do for now.
Totally. Awesome. So I'm just going to kind of take a second here because we got a bunch of people that have just come on the stream. So welcome everybody. Hello. I'm Andrew from HighTechU. I'm here with Henry from Kano Apps. Henry's our guest today here on Q&A Corner, interactive industry interview. interviews. If you are here in the chat, we are here for you. We want to answer some questions for you. So please throw your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them. We've got some questions that came in before, but I am seeing some questions in the chat already, so I think we're going to take our first question from the audience. So the question that's come through from Roduck is, how has remote work been for you at a gaming company? Does it create issues with art/developers/designers?
The silver lining with tech jobs, obviously no one's happy the pandemic is going on. And I was just lamenting to a friend earlier, I miss going out and seeing people, no doubt. However, the silver lining for tech is a lot of companies were structured to handle this kind of thing. We started working remote pretty much right away, early to mid-March, when everybody else did. And we haven't really skipped a beat. I think things would be different if video technology wasn't as good. If this had happened 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, it probably wouldn't have been as easy. But honestly, with the communication tools like Slack and Zoom and Google Chat and things like that, we haven't really skipped a beat. It took a little organization at the beginning just because people, we're not used to this. This has never happened before. But no, I mean, everyone's got the proper equipment at home. And if they didn't, we quickly got it to them. That included artists in terms of their setups, coders. I mean, they had proper equipment. We had a sign out sheet so people could just take equipment that they use from the office. And as long as they have a stable internet connection, which everybody at our team does, it was fine. It was a little weird, to be honest. Not seeing people took a little while, but I mean, I don't miss the commute. I don't miss, rushing out and making something, for lunch the night before and it ends up not being as good because I'm a terrible cook. Things like that I don't miss at all. And I still feel connected because half the time, I'm either talking to somebody on Slack or we're in some kind of meeting or email or whatever. So I know with a lot of companies, though, I will say that you miss a lot of that collaboration, particularly in gaming where there's so much creative input required and a lot of sort of like eureka moments that you just have to grab somebody and talk to. Along with that, training is also a little more difficult. It's harder to point to the screen and be like, no, and type it out for someone. So that is a challenge. But I would say for us and for a lot of tech companies, we were sort of built for something like this, where we didn't need to have everybody in the office at all times. So that being said, I can't wait for everything to get back, to normal and everybody to get healthy and see people again and things like that. But in terms of work, not that much has changed in terms of my day-to-day operations.
Totally. And I'm realizing that I might have actually had the microphone muted during the question. So if you're wondering, Henry just started talking and you were like, where has this come from? The question was around how has remote work been for a gaming company and then issues that it might have created. Fingers crossed. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm doing something on a computer right now that allows for me to chat with you. So if things go wrong, it's an expectation at this point. I feel working remote too. Oh, awesome. Thanks, Filthy Record. This is like a super active chat. The last two of these have been super active. So, okay, there's another question also coming from Roduck. With the pandemic, have you seen a drop or increase with your players? So at Kano Apps, have you seen a drop or increase?
An increase for sure. And again, that's kind of the silver lining, is that people aren't going out as much. So they're spending more time at home, which probably means they're playing our games a little bit more. So that was unexpected. We didn't have that planned into, sort of our yearly projections or things like that. It hasn't been like necessarily like, oh, we've seen 3,000% or anything like that, but we've certainly seen more consistent play and more players playing our games. So again, that's kind of a silver lining for us. That's what we want. We want players to enjoy our games as much as possible. We want as many players as possible. So even I will say the biggest increase I noticed was over the holiday season. Normally Christmas time is pretty quiet. We don't roll out a ton of features during that week. We have, a skeleton staff. Everyone's usually on holiday, or Kano will give us the week off. We'll have coverage, in case there's issues or anything like that. And usually, I volunteered for that week. I'm like, this is going to be a nice and easy, just crack my knuckles here. Nice and easy, relaxing shift. And it was not at all. It was extremely busy. I couldn't believe it. And I guess that just makes sense. People weren't able to, go to holiday parties, so they weren't able to see their friends and family as much. So, they were playing the game and giving us feedback as usual, and pointing out issues or questions about the game. So I would say, yeah, around the holidays is when I really, really noticed a jump in activity. Sure.
Now, of course, now I'm muted. I like was good before, but now I'm muted. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So, anyways, I was just saying to Henry, I've thrown some nice mood music on for us, and in the chat, let me know if you like it or if it's distracting. But I felt like we've got so many people here, might as well add like an extra layer of awesome. So
I'm also very loud, Andrew. So it's a good contrast to have with some nice relaxing, moody music.
I love it. And then I'll throw on like some alt rock in a little bit, so it'll be good.
Sure.
Okay, so there's one more question that came through from Rodak. And so the question is, there's a ton of news about crunch in the games industry, often making it seem like it's a pretty draining career. How has your experience been about crunch?
I love that question. We're really fortunate in that we don't have, I don't want to say we don't have crunch. We have deadlines and things like that, but nothing like the 80 or 90 hours you hear about. We're really fortunate in that. Kano's great at, not having mandatory overtime, or if they do, it's like, hey, you can go relax later on. That's a pretty core fundamental of our work environment is the work-life balance. That being said, it can be really tricky, and I read things obviously at the forefront right now with CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk, and it's pretty heartbreaking because you have a lot of passionate, dedicated people that are really wanting to get in there and work collaboratively as a team and put their stamp on the industry and make something really cool. And right now, it's really hard to look at a company and say, like, I don't know if that's possible for you to make something as detailed in Cyberpunk and not have you work 90, 100 hours a week. And that just may not be possible. It's heartbreaking, really, Andrew, because when I was playing through games like, Last of Us Part 2 or Grand Theft Auto 5 or Cyberpunk, and I'll try and be more cognizant of things now that I'm working in the industry, and I'll go into some random room and I'll try and look at everything I can. And you just know that somebody spent a month on a bookshelf in some random closet or a bathroom, and they have to make sure that the lighting works. If someone's opened the closet door, there's nothing in there for the player to get. It's just window dressing, but it's so crucial to the realism of what they're going for. But like 90% of players are never even going to go either near it or look at it or admire it. It's absolutely crazy how much detail is required, how much work is needed. If you look at our game as a comparison, there's a reason that we probably don't work 90, 100 hours, because our game is relatively simple compared to that. But even our game is enormously complex behind the scenes. We have, a team of 30. I think we're at 30 now, 31, 32. We're hiring for a couple positions. More on that later. And we work around the clock to make sure that, the servers are always up and we're adding more content, and the artists work all the time to make sure that there's new art available, and our product team tries to create new exciting features and new items and things like that. That all being said, that has to be done with a moderately expected amount of work hours. So we're very, very well aware of that. Our founders, Eric and Tim, are always cognizant of that. But that I'll say I'm glad I'm not in their shoes, because that balance of, we want to make sure employees are happy and healthy versus we have to ship a product is not something that I envy in terms of trying to decide.
So I wonder, and it's funny that you talk about those things of like in the game, there's like somebody that spent a month working on that, and I think that that's something that's not seen. But do you think that maybe is why video gaming really attracts a very kind of maybe a much more creative mind in kind of the tech sector? Because I know a lot of artists that are like, they'll spend like months, right, on like that one section of either a drawing or a sculpture or whatever it is, like, and it has to be perfect, even though nobody will ever notice that. Do you see, like, for all roles in the tech sector, within the video game sector, are they attracting kind of a more creative? Because you said you are, with your background in acting. Do you think that's a universal, or are you the exception to the rule?
I would unquestionably, video games are an incredibly powerful emotional attractor for a lot of people. People get very attached to their technology. You have people lining up for phones, right? Even though it's roughly the same model every year, but they're incredibly passionate about that. The whole world around tech is monumental. I can't even imagine. And games are an even bigger example of that. A lot of people have grown up playing video games all their life. We have like artists who on their spare time will just draw or paint, even though they draw and paint all day. And they'll always so humble, and I'll say, oh, Amaris or Jose or Tim, like, that looks amazing. They're like, oh, it's not that good. I wasn't able to put the finishing touches on it. And it's just astonishing. So I think you kind of have to be a little creative to work in this. There's no real blueprint in terms of like what a good game is. If you look at right now, the most successful games, certainly that kind of came out of the blue, were Battle Royale and things like, social games with Among Us and Fall Guys. Those genres of games didn't really exist 5 years ago. I mean, they kind of did. Shooting is not new, puzzles are not new, multiplayer is not new, but the way they've done it is new. And so what comes from that is a group of very creative people that wanted to do something different and wanted to do something cool. So I think it's inevitable that the industry is going to attract people like that. I don't know if every single person in every single video game company is, on the same creative level. Probably not. But you also need a good mix of people. You can't just have everyone, throwing out wild ideas. Like, you need operations people to make sure that the servers run properly. You need project managers to make sure that the timeline and the number of employees is appropriate. You need marketing people, which that's obviously a very creative venue. But you need a mix of that. I would say, at least that's what I see at Kano.
Totally. So that's awesome. Thank you for that. And so we got more questions that are coming in. This is awesome. This is like such a super active chat. So from Miss Michelle MMA, when you say the gaming industry is like marketing, are you saying that the gaming industry is marketing through games, or like what did you mean by that?
Sure. So I should reiterate. So my experiences with online affiliate marketing. So I did that for about 9 years. I worked on the publisher side and the advertiser side. In terms of like similarities, it's more like the speed that everything goes. I remember I would go in to work, and then one day our best advertiser will all of a sudden be our number 3, because we've just brought on 2 new advertisers, and our whole company had to change in terms of priorities and reaching out to publishers to make sure they pitch that and things like that. Gaming moves just as fast. Everything in tech moves really, really quickly in terms of those two things. There's not really, like I said, there's not really a blueprint or rules for what makes a good game. So for us, I'll give you an example. Battle Royale, obviously very, very popular. We didn't have a Battle Royale feature a year ago, and now we do. But that required a lot of creative thought in terms of how do you make a Battle Royale game with our game, which is static images and bars and the social aspect, but you're not necessarily controlling someone running around and shooting in a 3D space. So that required a lot of creativity, much like online marketing did. In terms of publishers creating landing pages that would be enticing to people, negotiating rates and things like that with the advertiser. So in terms of video games being exactly like marketing, there's not a ton of direct connection there. But in terms of like the speed of working in both offices, there's a lot of similarities there.
Very cool. So I'm going to switch to a slightly different screen, and then we'll kind of jump around with some of the stuff you're talking about with the games. But we had somebody that's asked the question, which is your favorite Kano game? So I've just pulled up the Kano website, and I have all the games here. And so if people don't know about kind of the history of Kano, Kano started with like Free Rider, correct? Like that was kind of one of the first games that they did, or?
Yeah, Viking Clan was our first, and that's now almost 12 years old.
Oh wow!
It's pretty amazing. That's one of the original games there. I work more on that side, so with things like Free Rider and Fubar, that's on the other side of the team, so I can't speak a ton to that. But Mob Wars, Zombie Slayer, Viking Clan, and Pirate Clan are very similar. They operate in slightly different manners. But my favorite is Mob Wars, just because that's our most popular game. That's where all our player base is. Not all of it, sorry, I shouldn't say that. A good amount of our player base is. And I just, I really, really enjoy the chat is like yours, is super lively. So I like going in there and chatting with the players. Yeah, we use mob wars a lot in terms of judging like player activity and testing things out and things like that. So I do love all 4 of our games. It's awesome. Our player base is incredibly passionate and dedicated. But yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd go Mob Wars LCM.
So how big is the player base? Like how many users are on say playing Mob Wars that you're using that as your base? Are you able to share
I can't give an exact number, but it's easily tens of thousands. It is a lot. Some days it feels like a lot when we look at the ticket queue. But yeah, that's another thing is largely dependent on features and days of the week. So our raid games, our raids, for example, raid bosses are incredibly popular. Those run sort of once a week for each game, Thursday to Sunday. So that's when a lot of players will jump on. Thursdays is usually when we start, events and things like that. We'll have bounty blitzes where players can post hits on other players. That one's incredibly popular. So we'll see a huge spike in activity because players will time their gameplay, around events and features and times like that. So that's pretty cool. It just requires a lot of communication on our team because sometimes a developer will be working on something when maybe we don't want them to be working on something at 12 o'clock because that's when one of our blitz events is. So if they could maybe work on that at 2 instead of 1, that would be great. Things like that. So yeah, it definitely keeps you on your toes.
So then maybe that kind of ties over into kind of the first question that I sent you yesterday that had come through, which is what exactly is it that you do day to day? So you said you're not on the coding side. Your
Nope.
title is player success lead. What does that actually mean? So you're engaging with players, or like how would you describe to somebody who's maybe not aware of that this exists what you do?
Sure. So, like I said, I'm the player success lead. So I had a team that fields any problems that the players are having. So if it's laggy, or maybe they bought something and it didn't show up in their account, or they're having troubles with another player, or maybe they saw someone say something in chat that they shouldn't have, or they would like to see an improvement in the game. That's all us. So we help them out with any kind of account issues. We help improve the game. We'll talk with the players. We'll play with the players, and we'll help the developers and live ops and things like that come up with cool ideas that we can put into the game. So we're sort of a jack of all trades in that area. And then as lead of the team, it's my obligation to make sure that our goals are met, that we're responding to players in the right way, that we're responding to them in a timely manner, and that we voice, opinions that players want to be put in the game. So we're kind of the scouts, the frontline support staff of our players. Since our game runs 24/7, there's always a lot to do too. So we try and have overlapping coverage. Right now, we've got someone working on Saturday, sometimes Sundays. We have players all over the world, so that's definitely something we're looking out for too. We want to make sure that everybody is happy, and at all times of the day. So it's tough. There's a lot to be done there, but that's roughly what we do.
Very cool. I love that. And so it seems like the chat has slowed down a little. So and that answer is kind of a great spot to pause for a second. So if you're just jumping onto the stream, welcome. I'm Andrew. This is Henry. Henry is our guest here for Q&A Corner, interactive industry interviews. This is what Henry does. Henry is the player success lead at Kano, which he was just talking about his role and what he does there. If you've got some specific questions about maybe what that job is all about, how you get there, any questions that you might want to ask Henry, feel free to throw them in the stream chat, which is either down below or over on that side. If you're catching this on YouTube, I'm sorry it'll be less interactive, but I will still get your questions to Henry for like later answers, but it won't be live on here. So feel free to throw your questions in the comments below as well there. But I think we're gonna keep jumping through into some of these questions that we had. And I guess the next one is probably the most important. Oh, okay. So we've got a question that you might not be able to answer that's come through the chat. Kano virtual reality freerider. When is it coming?
I can't say. I'm sorry. There's a lot of questions we get about like our upcoming games and things like that. And plus this is plausible deniability, as I don't actually work on that side of the company. So I'm free on that one, but no, I can't say. Sorry.
I was gonna say this is a very clever way of somebody trying to figure out if they can skirt the finding out information rule by going to like this separate thing that's not quite
That's
Kano.
right.
I love it.
Hey, they're just asking questions. That's totally fine.
I love it. So, okay, so kind of the big question that I have for you is how often during your workday, like how many hours would you say in a week do you just get to play games? Like, is this an active thing where you are like part of your job is you get paid very well just to play video games?
I wish. No, not very much. A lot of time players will maybe, be cognizant of that, and they'll be like, "You don't play the games as much as us," and I will say, "You're absolutely right. I can't play the game as much as you guys. It's impossible in any given day." We have some players that have played, and I mean this, every single day for the last 10 years. They are extremely dedicated. So I can't match that. I can't match their historical knowledge, which is why we rely on players so much to send in tickets about feedback and perspective on what they like to see or the changes they've liked versus stuff they've disliked. That being said, we have to be very familiar with our games. Lucky for us, it's easy to replicate any issues players are having. So we have, on our phones, we have the app, and then obviously on the desktop that, we can log in as a player and see exactly what they're seeing. But we do have to be familiar with it. So yeah, we're encouraged obviously to play a little bit every day. We have our admin blitzes once a week, which means we reserve an hour depending on the game, and we just fight the players and trash talk and have a lot of fun. That's probably my best part of the week. I love the admin blitz. So doing that is a really cool way of doing it. But that being said, all the players have different backgrounds in terms of how they play the game. We have a very combative part of the game, but also some players just like to do adventures and go for achievements, and that's important to recognize as well. So the answer is, I wish we got paid to play the games a lot, but we only get to play a tiny bit, and the rest is supporting the players and making sure the game runs smoothly.
So is that something unique to Kano? Like I know when I first got introduced to Kano a number of years ago, one of the things that I really I loved about the company was just it was so focused on community driven games. So everything that was being done at Kano was focused on engaging with the community. Is that different, or has gaming sort of has it always been that sort of community focus, because people, if they're upset, they'll make it known in whatever area?
As long as I've been here, it has been a focus. It's a huge focus for us to create long-lasting relationships through social gaming. Without the social aspect, our game is nothing, and I mean that. Obviously, we're very proud of a lot of the features, like Battle Royale and the raids and things like that. But the hook is that players make friendships, or they play with their family, because maybe they don't get to see them all the time. And that is the ultimate pull of our game. It is so crucial that we understand that and that we cultivate it, and we make it easy for players to find friends or find syndicates, or like the groups, your guilds, if you like, to find them and find a group that they like, because then they feel like, oh, they're counting on me to come back and help them, and I get to chat with them and things like that. So that's our number one mantra, basically, is social gaming. We're almost always going to have that part to our games. Tim and Eric, our president, and our CEO, both founders, stress that in pretty much every meeting we have. They start every meeting with that. So no, incredibly important. That being said, unless you make it a focus, it's really easy to get away from that. But also, I think because we're a small team, we're able to do that well. And because we don't necessarily have a player base in the tens of millions, we're able to do that. I remember reading a little while ago, Steam, and this might have been a few years ago, Steam gets something like 60,000 tickets a day.
Whoa.
A day. So now imagine a game like Among Us, which has a small team, or Fortnite or PUBG, where you have 70 million players. There is no way you're going to be able to engage with a fraction of those players. It's just a numbers game. You're not going to be able to do it. If Steam hired 1,000 people just to answer Steam tickets, you'd be stressed like crazy, because you'd have each person trying to manage 60 tickets a day, which is not reasonable. You're not going to build any kind of relationships there. So I will say in that we're really lucky in that we're able to foster really good relationships, and we know players on an individual basis. Maybe not all of them, but certainly by chatting with them and hanging out with them, I feel like we're able to give pretty good customer service compared to like an automated form, which we don't really do.
So does that become a problem then for like a company that is so community heavy if it scales? Like if tomorrow you release like Mob Wars version whatever, and then you had 1 million signups, like which right, everybody would love, and I'm sure like it's a good problem to have. But do do you think because community is so ingrained within Kano, it would be something that would be able to be handled pretty easily?
We'd have to evolve. There's no way we'd be able to handle an influx of that amount of players and be able to do the same thing. Obviously the first thing is we'd have to hire more people to support that. But we've talked about this in terms of scaling up. The core fundamentals of our company are still going to be intact. You're still going to be working with like a small team. You're not going to be interacting with 7 different people at Kano. Your day-to-day interactions are probably going to be, limited to maybe 5 or 10 people and things like that. We don't necessarily want, big group meetings with 40 people every day. That's not how we do it. But what we look for are people that are very team oriented. They're driven. Ownership is one of our core values that's very strong. So I think as long as we stick to that, regardless of our level of success, I think we're going to be able to provide players with pretty good support and continue to grow the game. That being said, if you find 1 million people, you send them right on to kanoplay.com.
I love it. So, okay, so maybe I'm going a little bit broader because obviously you've been kind of connected with the game industry for a while. One of the things in the bio that I really liked was sort of your connection with LANtasy and sort of the Victoria game sector. So I don't necessarily think that when people think Victoria, British Columbia, this touristy town with whales and cruise ships, they don't really think gaming, but there's some huge game companies here. So you've got Codename Entertainment, Kano Apps, just to name a few. I'm curious, your experience with LANtasy and that community that exists here. Maybe just a little bit more about what that is like.
Absolutely. I can't recommend this enough. I got this question quite a bit: is how do I get my foot in the door, in the gaming industry? And Victoria, because we're a small community, it's relatively easy to do. And I should mention, this is going to be, when the pandemic's over and people are actually going to events. But I know there's Cutthroat Gaming, YYJ Tech hosts events all the time. The best thing you can do is go to these events and meet people and talk with people. That's where you meet these, make these connections and things like that. But yeah, I've been super interested in, like I said, gaming all my life, and I was really fortunate that some of my friends, we started off hosting the LAN section at GotaCon, so we started there, and then they branched out into LANtasy, and seeing the amount of work required and the operations was absolutely staggering. But again, it gives you a really, really good insight into what positions are needed, how much help is needed. And I was really fortunate in that they asked me to host the panels, and I did that for a couple years. Spoke with a couple people, a couple people from Codename for one, and it was just fantastic because I think people were, like you said, Victoria, British Columbia. By the way, you mentioned whales. I worked for a whale watching company for 3 years too, covering a lot of ground here. Is that there can't be gaming here, but there's quite a few gaming companies in Victoria, and it's awesome to see. And the fundamentals of what makes a good game and what people are interested in, it doesn't actually matter where you make it, as long as you make it. They can find you online, or they can find you on the eShop, or they can find you on the Steam store and things like that. It's a competitive industry, no doubt, but it exists in Victoria. It's great. I had such a good time too at LANtasy and GotaCon. I remember the last year we did it before we closed up shop. I remember everything being really calm a couple hours in, and all the staff were actually playing games, and we're all like, what is wrong with this picture? It's like, oh, because there are no problems with the servers, and everyone signed in, and everything went to plan, and I can't believe everything is going according to schedule. This is fantastic. So it was a great send off. I had such a good time.
I love that. And yeah, this idea of community I think is huge, and attending events and people.
Sure.
People I don't necessarily think, and I'm sure you probably see this too because you work in the game industry, and I'm sure lots of people are obviously always asking you how to get your foot in the door. People don't appreciate the impact that sort of an initial conversation, a very sort of informal, hey, tell me about your job, can do to help them get connected. Because everybody's got, it's like 7 degrees to Kevin Bacon. There's 7 degrees to some tech company somewhere that's doing game things that those doors can be opened through just a conversation.
I'm glad you brought up the Cutthroat gaming website. That's a great event. Honestly, if I had to give, I'll give 2 pieces of advice. One is if you see a gaming company that you want to work for in Victoria, you're interested in gaming, follow them on social media and see what stuff they're into. If they're going to events, if they're going to Cutthroat Gaming, it doesn't matter if you're right out of university or in university, or even if you're a high school student and you maybe don't want to go to university, that's totally fine. The best thing you can do is go talk to somebody who works there. That's the best thing you can do. It shows that you have interest. It shows that you're taking initiative. People tend to trust people that they've met before. You can ask them questions. Like, you've noticed people love talking about themselves and their job and what they do. That would be my first piece of advice. And Victoria is small enough that you can find people really, really easily. Even during the pandemic, best thing to do is just reach out and say, I know I don't even want to interview right now. I just want to talk to somebody. Is anyone available? Or, for a quick 50-minute chat or a coffee, socially distanced, whatever. Highly, highly, highly recommend that. And then the second thing is, when you are applying for a position, at least at our company, and more on that later, don't forget a cover letter. We've had a lot of really impressive resumes come in, and no cover letters puts you at a distinct disadvantage. We don't know who you are. We don't know what you're about. You've mentioned that you have maybe a degree in computer science, or you have a degree in writing, which is great. We look for skills like that, but I don't know who you are. I don't know where you grew up. I don't know why you're interested in this. It puts you at a disadvantage. So don't forget the cover letter. It's not the most important thing, but it certainly does put you at a disadvantage if you don't include one.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, right? You always hear, like, in schools, you're learning all of these things about how to apply for jobs, and then it seems like somewhere between when you learn those initial things in high school and then you go to apply for the real world, you forget some of those, or you think, oh, that's not necessary anymore. So that's like, to have somebody that's working in that job say, like, no, it is a thing you need to do.
And volunteering, if you like I said, if you're young and you don't necessarily have a lot of experience and you're maybe having trouble getting in with an entry-level job, volunteer for stuff. Like I mentioned, with LANtasy or GotaCon, those don't exist, but there are conventions. Cutthroat Gaming, I'm sure, looks for volunteers when they're coming back. There's a lot of events around town that are tech-oriented, via tech. There's shows and things like that. I know it doesn't seem super relevant, but if you can point to something and say, like in an interview, well, no, I haven't had any experience yet, but I volunteered a couple times at insert tech event here, insert gaming event here, insert HighTechU thing here. That makes a big difference in the interviewer's minds, because again, it's all about, like, oh, this person is really interested and they're making an effort, and maybe they absorbed something when they were working beside somebody who works, high in tech or whatever. Oh, you chatted with Bill. Oh, what did Bill have to say? Oh, that's great. Okay, things like that. Like, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, and I'm not saying resumes and experience, are not important. They are. But if you're looking for a leg up, that's the way to go for sure.
I love that. So, okay, so I like that we've kind of been foreshadowing a little bit to bring in my limited literary knowledge here. So I'm super curious, like, what kind of, like, so both, let's talk about, now it's like more about that later. Let's talk about that later stuff. So what kind of things are available at Kano right now? And, like, what are your maybe top 3 tips for somebody that's not necessarily just applying for Kano, but that's applying for a job in the game dev industry?
Cool. No problem. So yeah, the timing, I was mentioning to Andrew earlier, watchers, the timing is really fortunate because we have 2 positions opening on my team right now. If you go to kanoapps.com, on the careers page, you'll see an opening we have a part-time player success rep, and this is great for a student or someone looking to get in the door. So it'd be about 20 hours a week. We're probably looking at Friday to Monday, so it would be some weekend coverage. But you get to work for me. You get to work on my team and do all the cool stuff we've been talking about in terms of helping players, working in tech, working in gaming. So if you haven't applied already, and we've got quite a few applications, please send it in and heed my warning in terms of a cover letter and things like that. And also, I would recommend, if we're looking for tips, number one should be read the position thoroughly. Number 2 is mention gaming. Mention your interest in gaming. Mention your experience in gaming. I know I'm not a coder, but I speak with the lead of our developer team all the time, and he'll say, we won't even look at a resume unless they've built something, unless they have something tangible to show. If you're an artist, you've got to have a portfolio. And in our case, if you're a prospective player success rep, that's it. Show me something you've written, because writing, we're looking for a lot in terms of prospective applicants. Have you written a blog? Have you written a post? Have you done something really cool? Have you volunteered and maybe you had to write out something for people? Please show that. That's exactly what we're looking for. So beyond an interest in gaming, and you don't have to have worked in the gaming industry. You may not even, necessarily love the kind of games we play, but I highly, highly recommend that you take an interest in what we do if you're serious about applying. So that's those sort of two tips there is, show your work, mention gaming. And in terms of getting into the gaming industry, what really helped me, and Andrew, I'm going to plug a few things, but they're not mine. They don't count as plugs, is a couple books I read in terms of getting into the industry. This is a really cool one. It's called Paid to Play. It's an insider's guide to video game careers. I found this randomly at some bookshelf in Russell's at their old location, like their old location. And it's just a really cool guide in terms of like what positions I could do or be with certain careers. I would recommend that, along with, this is a really cool one. It's called Reverse Design. Chrono Trigger is my favorite game ever. And Patrick Holman does a really good job in terms of going into like the specifics of design. If you're serious about getting into the gaming industry, show an interest, read books like these, tell the interviewers, like, this is what I really love about this kind of game, or this is what I really love about that kind of interaction. There's a million forums now, or I shouldn't say forums, there's a million channels in terms of learning about the gaming industry on YouTube, on Twitch, follow, important personalities on Twitter. You're going to be able to absorb, what kind of companies are really successful, what makes them successful, why did they fail. We mentioned, someone mentioned Crunch and Cyberpunk and things like that. It's important that you understand the industry as a whole, because regardless of the type of game, even a game like ours, which may look a little simple, to something like Cyberpunk, which is extraordinarily complex, the fundamentals remain the same. You have an incredibly passionate fan base who want to make sure they get their money's worth and have fun and build a community and things like that. So those are my three tips. And one I will throw in also is Masters of Doom. It's the single best video game book biography. It's about the making of the famous video game Doom, Carmack and Romero. It's incredible. It's an amazingly written book. So do your research, and it'll show in your interview.
I love that. These are golden tips, and I love this. Woo! So thank you so much for sharing that kind of insight. And
Sure.
If you're on the stream right now and you've got like some specific questions that maybe Henry didn't answer in there, feel free to throw it in the chat. We're definitely here to kind of answer some of your questions, but we don't have a huge amount of time left, so we've only got about maybe a little under 15 minutes left until we're gonna call it for today, because Henry's got a lot of players that are waiting for him to get back in there. So if you do have any questions and you're just tuning into the stream, welcome. This is Q&A Corner presented by HighTechU, which is here at the beautiful University of Victoria. We're here today with Henry, who's the player success lead at Kano Apps, which is a local video game studio here in Victoria, British Columbia. We're talking all things tech and careers and gaming. So feel free to throw your questions in there, and we are super, super excited to answer some more of those for you. So I want to give you a chance, Henry, if there's like something specific that you want to say, but I also I'm curious if you've talked a little bit about different jobs that are in there, but people maybe don't realize kind of the breadth of those jobs. And this is kind of going full circle back to the start. Like, so there's programmers and there's folks like you that are doing like player success. What other kind of jobs are out there in these studios?
Sure. So like you mentioned, so coders and artists are really, really important, but we also have marketing. So they do things like promote events and, make sure that our ads on Google and on Facebook and things like that reach the right kind of audience. They'll be responsible for creating and sending out cool promotions to all our players, so they'll have to be heavily involved in email. Marketing is a really, really important part of our company that people don't always think about there. We have HR, since we're a small team. It's only one, or maybe two, but HR is one of those very flexible positions where every company needs HR, so maybe you want to get into gaming that way. We mentioned our team, player success and player support. Probably a department that doesn't get a lot of attention is what we call live ops, or I guess you could say content. We are a 24/7 hour game. Players are insatiable attitudes for content, and we need people to make that up and make sure that the strength of the items doesn't get out of whack. We have to make sure that there's a proper progression. Data science is incredibly important. Like you said earlier, like the communication in terms of numbers and how much activity is going on is so crucial that we have a team of 2 who just dedicate their time to looking at stats of our game and looking at the behavior of players and things like that. So highly angled towards math. So if you're into math, data science is a big one for gaming companies and things like that. UI is another one where you get kind of a mix of artist and a developer. UI, especially for mobile. Mobile is so huge, but it acts so differently because real estate is limited on a screen. You have to really get your bang for your buck and make it not confusing for players to click the right thing or find the right thing. So we have some UI user interface developers as well. And again, they're kind of a mix of coding and artists. And then you have product managers, which again, they will kind of create a timeline of what we want to put into the game and when, and can we do this week? Well, we may have to push it off. Who's working on this, and delegate tasks and things like that. So there's quite a few positions in gaming that are not just coding and artists. And I will mention, I already mentioned one position. We have another position that'll be opening, community manager. It's not posted just yet, but it will be very soon. And their main focus is going to be social interaction, community, fostering a community, but also a ton of video work. So we do live streams every other week. We're going to be doing them a lot more, and we're going to be doing tutorial videos on our games. We have a few, but we're going to be expanding on that. So things like video editing and live streaming and editing, hosting, things like that are also very important to other gaming companies. So that position isn't posted yet, but it will be posted very, very soon. And my tips also apply to that one because that'll be on my team as well. Andrew, we couldn't have timed this better. We really couldn't have. I'm so impressed with your foresight.
You are so welcome. I knew that something like this might be coming through, so you are so welcome. And you know what? Any way to spread the word about Kano is such an awesome opportunity. And actually shout out on the stream. And I have a suspicion that maybe they're watching. But shout out to Magda, who is the human resource people operations manager at Kano, who helped to connect Henry and me and to set this up. So big shout out to Magda as well for helping to set up this stream. Okay, so we've got about 9 minutes left. And this is kind of like the wrap up, and I won't do to you what I've done to every other person on the stream, which is force you in 2 seconds before the end to come up with something, but I will pose the question that in 5 minutes I'm going to say, what's your best nugget that if somebody only watches 30 seconds of this, they want to take away. Okay. But I'll give you a kind of an easier question before we go into that really deep thing.
Sure.
What do you think makes a great game? So what is it that makes a video game go from an okay game to a great game?
Easy. Emotional impact. I have a blog, and I am going to plug my own blog. If you go to dollerz.com, I'm doing my journey through my gaming life. I'm ranking the top 500 video games I have played, and it's a lot about emotional impact and connection. If you ever ask anybody what your favorite game is and why, they will inevitably mention something like, well, I played it at the right time. I was going through a rough time and this game picked me up. Or, I met some really good friends playing online with Halo 2 and I can't ever recreate that. That's why it's my favorite game. For me, it's Chrono. You can see, spoilers. Number one for me will be Chrono Trigger. I played it when I was 12. I had a little TV in my room. It was kind of the second or third JRPG I'd gotten into. I'd got my feet wet with, Final Fantasy IV and Super Mario RPG. But then Chrono Trigger is so good in terms of pacing and design and all that stuff that you don't actually notice when you're playing. I liked it because I got to be friends with a frog and a robot and time travel and save the world and things like that. It's undeniably emotional impact. There's been a lot of games that I'm sure you've played and people have played and they said, it's good. It didn't quite hit me. There's something that's je ne sais quoi about your own life. Usually there's always some extraneous factor, not just the game itself. And so, easily the best thing for me, what really hits me is emotional impact. I'll mention right now Walking Dead, Telltale's Walking Dead Season 1. There's not much gameplay in there. It's almost all story, and it might be a bit dated now. Now we're going back to 2012 or 2013. But that one is so high up for me because by the end, I couldn't stop thinking about the characters and these harrowing choices I had to have made. My 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 mouse fingers just trembling. I'm like, no, I can't do it. Like, no, I got to do it. Not many games get to that. Last of Us Part 2, well, 1 and 2 are I mean, just brutal to play through, emotional slogs. In the latest one, you have to sometimes shoot enemy dogs, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. I felt bad playing it, but at the end I couldn't deny how impactful it was. It was so moving in terms of the characters and their struggle and journey and how realistic the graphics were. Oh my god, I also never want to play that again, ever. Yeah, so for me, number one above anything is emotional impact.
You know what? It's so funny. So I'm looking. I was thinking. I'm like, I should have come on to this stream knowing that I should have talked about some sort of gaming thing. But the last game that I can actually remember like wanting to finish was an old Sega game called Virtua Cop. Did you ever play that game?
Yeah, I remember Virtual Cop, of course.
And it used to be like you would go into the arcades and play it. But I remember playing through the entire thing, and it wasn't really the gameplay because the graphics were terrible and the gameplay was kind of whatever. But it was like the journey you were going through, and they like did these really terrible cutscenes where they were like the hostages and like you had to protect and like, and it's such a thing where it pulled at the, maybe not the heartstrings, but like you got like really stressed out when you were playing the game because you're like, I want to make sure that I save those people, or I got to kill that guy this way.
And if you're playing in the arcade, I bet you can remember the smell of the arcade, and I bet you can remember like borrowing a token from rest in peace Johnny Z's, but I had some great memories at Johnny Z's, the arcade. It's no longer there, but yeah, like you said, the game sometimes almost isn't relevant. So maybe you're playing with a really good friend, or you just had a really great day, and that was at the forefront of it. And then you can kind of pick and choose which parts of the game sort of highlighted why your day was so great.
It's so true. And I gotta say, I really do hope that we come full circle with because everything comes full circle. I hope that the arcade comeback is coming in like the next couple of years, and I hope that it's like Dave and Buster style, so it's very focused on my demographic, so that I can just go and play some games.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess there is the one in Victoria actually right now. Is it Quasars?
Yeah, Quasars is cool. They have some arcades and some pinball, and I've been down there a couple times, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, we have one of our, shout out to Brent. He's one of our employees at Kano. He is a pinball master. He's in a pinball league. And he actually got one for the office, so I can't wait to get back in there and play the Deadpool pinball. It's going to be pretty cool.
I love it. Okay, so we got about 4 minutes left, which means we've come to the part of the stream which I always love to put people on the spot. So some people may never watch this entire stream because they don't have an hour. So I always try and cut like the final like 30 seconds that I can put up somewhere. So what if you were going to encapsulate sort of what people should take away from this stream and your journey and things about the tech and video game industry, what would kind of be your 30-second to end things off?
I'd say it's a job. It's like that Cypress Hill song. It's a fun job, but it's still a job. You're not going to be, unless you're a highly paid influencer on Twitch, you're probably not going to make a lot of money playing games. What you can make money and make a career on is building something really cool with like-minded individuals. There's a lot of venues to show off what you can bring to a gaming company. If you're good at writing, show us a blog. If you're an artist, have a portfolio ready. If you're a coder, you got to be able to show something that you've made and show off your skills in various languages. Show off what you know about video games, and your passion will come through in those interviews, and you can get your foot in the door that way. And above all, and this goes for every industry really, make those relationships. Go to events, follow companies on social media, see what they're interested in, and make sure that they know that you're interested.
Gold. Absolute gold. I need to cut all of these things together so it'll be like its own 45-minute video of just like the best highlights.
I'm glad you gave me 30 seconds because you can tell when you read my blog I am probably much better served with an editor. So the fact that you gave me 30 seconds is perfect. You know what? Magda's really good at that. She's a taskmaster in meetings. She'll say, okay, yep, we got 2 minutes. Let's move it on, Henry. This isn't a soliloquy from Macbeth. Let's get going here.
Oh, I love it. Well, that's awesome. And I always love ending on these sort of high notes because they're a great takeaway. But if you've just come onto the stream, I'm very sad to say that in about 2 minutes, this stream is going to disappear. But we've been here Q&A Corner presented by HighTechU, interactive industry interviews. And today we're here with Henry Skey, player success lead at Kano Apps, which is a game studio here in town. If you want to check out more of what this stream was all about, you're in luck, because we will be uploading this hopefully by the end of the day today to our YouTube channel. I've just posted in the chat for our YouTube channel. Also, you'll be able to find it on our website at hightechu.ca. Definitely check it out. Follow us or subscribe. I'm not sure what you do here on Twitch, because one of them you pay for and one of them you don't. But do the thing that you don't have to pay for to subscribe to us here, or pay for. And definitely subscribe to us over on YouTube so you can get access to all of these things. And then, Henry, if folks are looking to find you, where can they go?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn, as you can see there, Henry Skey, and then you can follow me. I'm on Twitter at Dollars, DOLLERZ, and you can find me on my blog, dollars.com. And of course, check out KanoApps.com for the player success rep part-time position, and soon to be becoming the community manager position. And who knows, if you're watching me, maybe we'll be working together very soon, and I hope we do. Awesome. Andrew, I want to thank you for having me on. I've watched a couple of the videos that you sent, and they're awesome. I love that you're providing this this venue for students or people just graduating to get into tech. I know it can be really tough, and so I hope this will help them. And yeah, thank you again for having me. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. So I'm also realizing right at like the last minute of this stream that I've been mispronouncing your name the entire time. Oh, that's okay. Henry.
No, you know what? I should have told you. No, everyone gets it wrong. It's no problem at all. It should be Skey. If it's not, it should be SKI or SKEE. I've talked to my dad about this if we want to change it. Apparently there's hundreds of years of family tradition, so we can't change it. No, not a problem at all.
There we go. Anyways, thank you so much, Henry. It's been such a pleasure, and such an amazing opportunity to explore the game industry. I know you've got a lot of customers and players that are waiting for you, so we'll let you go. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you next time here on Q&A Corner presented by HighTechU. Bye.